The question, what's the point of learning more complicated chords in guitar? Chords are your support. They are enablers. They are your accompaniment. And they can be your musical partner. And while that relationship can be complicated at times, once you get to know your chordal partners, they become more and more familiar and easier to play with. When picking up guitar, regardless of style, you begin with the basics: G, C, D, Louie, Wild Thing, Hand Me Down My Walking Cane. Then you graduate to Am, C, D, F, House of the Rising Sun. All is going well until you hear Blackbird by the Beatles. Suddenly you need to add color to your A, and figure out how to play the A chord an octave higher, either a D form up on the 9th fret, or a bar form up on the 12th, or some other hybrid form in between. Suddenly chords got complicated, but not really, right? You learn to play an A with one finger instead of three, which now opens up your other fingers to add color. You learn to take the familiar D form and move it up a few frets, catching the root and third with your pinky and ring finger. These are augmentations of chords you already knew. As you get into fingerstyle, you take familiar chords and start using your thumb to pluck out bass notes, right? Then at some point you learn to add color on top with your pinky. Because when you're playing solo, fingerstyle guitar, your role becomes the bass, chord accompaniment, and lead. Over time you realize you start picking up what were once complicated chords or practices, and they become part of your playing. You could be satisfied only knowing chords in the root position, and using capo whenever someone changes key on you. But that makes for pretty bland playing. Think of it this way. What if you only knew the word pretty to describe something pleasing to the eye? That car is pretty. That girl is pretty. That sunset is pretty. That hamburger is pretty. You would soon find you are stifled by your limited vocabulary. That car is amazing. That girl is beautiful. That sunset is stunning. That hamburger is delicious. The complicated chords, like complicated words, are how you expand your vocabulary on the guitar's fretboard. By learning additional chords, you suddenly can say a whole lot more on your instrument.